All right, we're live now. Let's see where we are with Dave. All right, we're live. Now let's see. Okay, you're gonna have to turn that down. Hey everybody, I'm just looking for my friend Dave. Chromeo, Chromeo, oh, Chromeo. Maybe I'm a little early. Okay, where are we? Dave, where are you, baby? Okay. I'm waiting on Dave. He's probably waiting on me. And we're just trying to make that connection. What? Go live with. Dave, I'm looking for you, baby. Where are you? All right, let's see. No, I'm not seeing you. Okay, hang on. Where are we? Dave, where are you? Well, this is really compelling viewing, I'm sure. That's weird. Weird. Yeah. Sorry, everybody. We seem to be having a technical, we're out of step. We're not sticking to the 4 now. What's happening? Okay, I'm going to get out of this and I'm going to come back, everybody. Hold on.
Just keep talking.
Yeah, but I need to see him. I need to see him. We did this so beautifully about 10 minutes ago, and now we don't seem to be able to do it. Dave, where are you? I'm going to do this. I'm going to go Chromeo. No, he's not in there. Well, this is the first time I've done this, as you all know. So there are going to be glitches. God knows. We have been I feel like we've had the most intense sound check of my career in the last 60 minutes. Trying to get this. I really appreciate everybody's patience. Yeah, this is what you call teaching an old dog new tricks. This is what happens, see. Chromeo, where are you, baby? There he is. All right. All right, everybody. I'm being joined by the Funk Master himself. I can tell you that you've got the 2 biggest fans of Chic and Bernard Edwards in the world on this Insta Live right now. We are waiting for the night boat, baby. Yeah, I'm just come on, Dave. It's all about time. I clicked on him. I mean, I asked him to join. Okay, hold on. I'm not finding him. I love this. Here he is. Okay, come on, Dave. Add. Okay, so that's the connecting. All right.
I've been here.
Listen, I knew it was going to be. There's going to be a problem that was
Is
coming.
this because I was practicing, John? I was.
Now, you using a pick or you using your fingers? Right.
You told me to use a pick. You told us to use a pick. Yes, I was trying to get on, John, but here we are.
Yeah, we're here. Great. I think that people understand that, for me anyway, I've never done anything like this before. Well, I've done things like it, but this is different. Now, you've done this you've done live chats like this before, right?
Not that many. Only a couple, actually.
Yeah.
Only a few. I'm going to turn the air conditioning on. Hold on. There we go. All right.
Now you're in your studio, right?
Yep.
You're the house of the Funk Lords.
The house of the house of the Funk Lords. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, I was just saying before you came on, I think we've got we are the two biggest fans of Chic. Bernard in particular as a bass player. You and I are probably the two biggest fans of Bernard, like in the country, or certainly on Instagram at this moment.
That's on Instagram at this moment, definitely. But you've had the privilege of knowing him well, right?
Yeah. I mean, he was the last of the Chic guys that I met. I met Tony and Niall together. Duran was on tour with Blondie, and we were playing in New Jersey, and Niall and Tony, I guess Niall and Bernard had just produced that Debbie Harry solo album, Cuckoo.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so, you know, they were kind of pally, and Niall and Tony showed up to the show. And, you know, they knew that they were aware of us. You know, we were still, I think we were touring Rio. We were still, we were third on the bill. I mean, David Johansen was on the bill as well. So it was kind of cool. I mean, we really connected right away, to be honest. We were like, you know, I mean, you've met Niall. I mean, he's just like, you know, if you're in the room with Niall, you're at Niall's party. And it's just a groove. And he appreciated that we'd been dropping Chic's name as an influence. So we just got along right away. And it was much later when I came to work on the power station. We'd already worked with Niall on Wild Boys, and we were at the power station. Well, the power station hadn't been named as such, but Tony, Andy, and I were working up this other project. We didn't quite know what it was, and the assumption was that Niall would come in and produce it. And actually, it was Tony that said, no, it's not Niall, it's Bernard. And I was like, really? Bernard was like very different, kind of very quiet, very sort of. I mean, he would make a lot of quips, but sort of under his breath. I mean, whereas Niall's like out there. Right. He's more of a Taurus. I don't know if he was a Taurus, but he could have been. But you know, he was very inspirational to me, and obviously. And I mean, once you've played, you know, bass in the studio in front of Bernard, I mean, it's a breeze after that. No producer is going to intimidate you after that.
There's an amazing clip of you guys on YouTube from those sessions where you guys are both on bass and he's showing you a part, I think.
Yeah.
And like it's just one little part, and then he's telling you how to play it, and you're kind of...
I think it's the breakdown in Bang a Gong.
Yeah.
And I mean, God, I miss him. He was just such an extraordinary man and a musician, and a little bit more haunted than Niall. You know,
definitely.
But I actually love his voice as well. I love the songs that he sings, like Happy Man. You know, he's got a tremendous warmth to his whole presentation as a man, you know, and as a musician.
I was actually go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was actually going to ask you this based on your video. So obviously, you know, I never listened to Chic growing up because I was too young. Right. But when I was in like sort of, you know, late 80s, early 90s, like end of elementary school, early junior high or whatever, the kids who were into punk and the kids who were into, you know, I guess hip hop or even, you know, some kind of funky music, they didn't blend at all. There were two different groups completely. Yeah. And I crossed over from like the rock faction to the funk faction, but they never coexisted for us when we were kids. And when you were describing that you guys were a bunch of punk rockers and then you got into funk music, it seems so unlikely for me because those worlds would never have collided when I was a kid. So But how did it work for you guys? Like, were other punk kids going like, why are you listening to disco? Disco sucks. Like, what the hell?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well, it was a realization. I mean, it's so bizarre, but I actually remember the bright light moment.
huh.
And I was in a pub in Birmingham one lunchtime. I think I was at art school at the time, and I remember hearing back to back a Sex Pistols record and a Chic record, and
Right.
thinking, man, I love both of those records, you know, and almost like looking around as if, do you think they can tell? You know, do you think my
Huh.
friends can tell? So it was almost like a coming out thing, you know, because
Totally.
as you said, like disco, I mean, there was such an intensely anti-disco movement in the late 70s. I
Right.
mean, rock radio DJs were burning disco
Yeah.
records,
Yeah.
and it was real. I mean, I guess it was race, or
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
was
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
there was
It was
also this
racist. It
thing
was
about,
homophobic. It was the whole thing.
but I think there was also this fear that recorded music and the DJ was going to take away from the live music
Right.
experience.
Right.
And so it was part of that keep music live. I remember that was a big movement in Britain in the late 70s.
Right.
Keep music live. You know, let's try to stay away from DJs.
Right.
But I mean, I just felt like, I always liked Motown, you know,
Okay.
like from a distance.
Sure. Sure.
You know, I wasn't passionate about it the way that I was about Bowie and Queen and Roxy, but and I liked Philly soul. I mean, you know, it was
Right.
that music was just in the air when I was growing up. You know, I mean, the BBC, Radio 1. I mean, they were massive soul. I mean, soul is huge in England. You know that. I mean,
Yeah.
like, but I think with Chic, what got my attention about them, where the other disco records didn't, was here you had a power trio. You know, you had a guitar player, you had a drummer, and a bass player, and they were locking in like
Right.
Cream. They just happened to be
Right.
playing these. They just happened to be. It wasn't about soloing. It wasn't about, you know, virtuosity or breaks. It was just this lockdown groove. But I don't know. It just connected with me. Everybody danced. I still remember hearing that song for the first time. You know, I remember hearing Good Times for the first time.
Yeah.
And I, you know, as I mentioned in the video, you know, bass in punk. I mean, punk was very much it was about the guitarists and the singers. They were the guys that really. There were a couple of great bass players in that period. Paul Simon, and actually not a great bassist necessarily, but a great stylist. I mean, you could look at Paul on stage and you go, I want to be like that.
Right.
You know, and I did. Jean-Jacques Burnel from the Stranglers actually was like an amazing bass voice from that period. But it wasn't until I started thinking, well, is there a way to incorporate, there's something that I like about disco, and is there a way to incorporate everything that we know we already like about punk rock? And Chic seemed like the way in, and the way in seemed to be like, okay, well, I better play the bass because, you know, nobody else is getting it. Bearded John, come back. Rosia Man just said, Bearded John, come back. What the hell does that mean? When have I ever been bearded?
Don't spiral
Bizarre.
too much into the comments, John.
Don't ask him about the beard. Somebody. Disco's for kings. Somebody just said. I like that.
Nice.
I like that. So tell me a little bit, Dave, about your early music experiences, music that really like got to you, stuff you remember hearing, for like records that you'll never forget the first time you heard them.
Well, okay, it was actually a little bit similar to what you described, except that for when I was a kid, you know what, I don't know, ages like, let's say 11 or 12, the music we were listening to was kind of like rock from the 60s. You know, I guess that was the cool music to listen to when I was a kid. We were listening to Hendrix and Zeppelin and all that. And naturally, you know, if you had, you know, guitar was like the de facto instrument to learn.
Yeah.
And, you know, in my elementary school, I was the one kid who could play Purple Haze, you know, and Strange Brew by Cream. And, you know, and Since I Was Loving You by Zeppelin or whatever, you know, those kind of like solo-y, even Santana stuff we would just learn. We're 11, 12, 13 years old. And, yeah, it was like classic rock. We'd buy the records on vinyl, and we even went into like some, I don't want to say more unsavory, but more nerdy. Prog rock was really big in Montreal.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was listening to like early Genesis and, you know, Gentle Giant and stuff, King Crimson.
Yeah, I like that. I like prog too. It's like
I mean, when you're
a dirty
guitar
word
player,
in the Duran studio. It's like when music starts to head down that way, somebody yells out prog. But actually, like Van der Graaf Generator, I really loved as well.
I mean, there's some cool stuff in there.
Yeah.
And it's challenging. But I was also like into Zappa. I guess Zappa has translated somehow into the music I currently make in spirit. But and then I remember hearing some music that would reference. We would all go to the arcade and play pool, and there was a James Brown record in that arcade that we used to go, you know, and Sex Machine would come on, and I had never really heard music that didn't change. Like I didn't understand what that was. It was the same. It was like a loop, and I'd never heard that before. And then so I would overhear James Brown records or other kind of like. Even like the Beastie Boys were making in the early 90s, they were making some funk instrumentals. And I got more and more into that. And as a guitar player, I couldn't wrap my head around. I thought at first I was like, he's not doing anything. He's just doing, and I didn't understand where the value was to that. And I didn't understand why the songs wouldn't change. There would be no chords, really. It was one chord. And then, but that was sort of for me, there came to be like a realization that in that paradigm of music, it's less is more, and you have to lock in. And once you've locked in, it can go on forever. And because this was the early 90s, hip hop was big, and hip hop was also loops. In fact, hip hop was sampling from those records too. So in a weird way, you know, Roger and Zapp, More Bounce to the Ounce, was coexisting with Snoop and Dr. Dre, which was coexisting with Jamiroquai, which was coexisting with James Brown, which was coexisting with hip-hop records that would sample James Brown. It was all one thing for me. It was all, I discovered it all at the same time. My parents never had a James Brown record, really, or much less of Zapp or a Parliament record. So I was just listening to all this at once. And then it was like I fell in love, and I put away the distortion pedal, the fuzz pedal, that was gone. I don't think I ever played with distortion on my guitar for the next 10 years. I forgot all the scales, the harmonic minor Santana solos that I was doing when I was 12 years old, forgot all that. And I was with my partner P, who's still my partner in Chromeo. We were playing guitar and bass, and all we decided was to learn how to groove together and lock in together. And
you'd had the funk had entered you.
Yeah,
you know, and there would be no turning back.
Yeah, and besides, you know, we were discovering the whole mythology around it. You know, like I'm black and I'm proud, say it loud, paint the White House black. You know, and then for us it was contemporary because like, oh, Rodney King just happened. Oh my God, it was like it was weirdly current. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And there were still people. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to, you know, we lost Florian Schneider yesterday from Kraftwerk, you know, which was like massive. And actually, I mean, I found myself listening on an app yesterday to Kraftwerk's live show from 1975 from on the Croydon in London. And so I guess it's kind of on the Autobahn tour. They hadn't as yet written any songs with words.
Right.
And it was just remarkable, the level of experimentalism that was going on, you know, and it just made me feel, you know, I mean, one of my character defects is that I tend to look back and say, it's not, we don't do it like we used to. But it was really remarkable. I mean, honestly, for about 20 minutes as we were driving across town, all we were listening to was like boop 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 doop doop. It was amazing, and you know, I think the techno element as well was, you know, everything there were a number of things came to a head at the end of the 70s, and there was, as I said, it was the punk rock thing really drove it was at the guts of it, you know, and you know, so many kids that. Because the people that I was playing with, that I knew, very few of them had that experience that you'd had, where they'd been playing for a while and learning to play like a Zeppelin track or a Hendrix solo, and then transmogrifying into punk rock. They were just like kids that like, here, give me that guitar. Hey, well, hang on, you know, 2-3 chords and bang, you're off. But then, you know, but 78, 79, I mean, I think what did happen was that very quickly it became apparent, you know, how much meat there was on the punk rock bones. And I think by the time the Sex Pistols put their album out, it was like, well, okay, well, that's it. That's the ultimate statement. So right after that, what we call post-punk, you know, there was this huge, possibly more, even more, perhaps musically more interesting than punk itself, was suddenly, you know, everybody from like James Chance and the Contortions to Wire to Simple Minds, you know, you name it. And interestingly enough, and I don't know why, it became important that you could dance to it. And all of that post-punk music, everything that came from like 1978 onwards, whether it was American and also American and European music, started to meld a little. And it had to have a groove. And I think that's, and that's where Duran came in. But also to go back to that point about electro and techno, and that, you know, I was, you know, I had my Lynn going early in the thing, you know, and just that everybody started playing with that click in mind, you know, and there was, you know, I think that was kind of an interesting.
I mean, that was the disco innovation, probably, you know, that, and I think in New York, those scenes melded downtown. You know, you had punk kids hanging out with disco kids, and I think in New York, as it is today, as it always is in New York, things mix and meld together. So I could imagine, well, you know, we've all seen the pictures of Fab Five Freddy hanging out with all, you know, the art rockers and people from that scene. So I could imagine the music, you know, the sort of early Talking Heads records or whatever, all that sort of post-punk stuff, Television, whatever, Gang of Four, they were probably into the disco stuff as well.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think we probably weren't the only two.
Right.
But a lot of people were getting those signals. Plashur says, melting pot of music. Yes. Very much so.
But it is interesting because you have to, I guess, when you went from guitar to bass, and when I went from, you know, wannabe teenage shredder rebel to just basically I got to learn how to play one chord and make it groove forever. There is kind of, you have to accept that less is going to be more for a very long time.
I mean, we went through that with Dom Brown, the Duran's guitar player. And, you know, Dom came to us with, like, he had been, I mean, he's actually a great blues guitar player. And he's from that South London school that brought us, you know, Clapton and Beck, you know, and he's like, and he's really got those chops. And I mean, the first few years were all about, no, Dom, no, just play the same thing, you know. And it is something about, you know, because you're learning to do as much as you possibly can. That seems to be innate. It's like whatever it is you're learning to do, you want to be able to do as much of it as possible. But you know, I don't know. It's playing within a larger ensemble, you know, and I think whether you're talking about Fela Kuti or you're talking about Duke Ellington, you're talking about these big funk orchestras where you've really got to mind your shit, and you've really got to keep it down the middle. Because if everybody starts noodling and going off the path,
that's
it's all going to just fall apart. So discipline is really important.
There's a lot of rigor to it, actually. You know, the drummer's got to be a clock, and the bass and the drums have to lock in. If the bass and the drums don't lock in, it's the whole thing falls apart, right? And we were talking about this yesterday. In all those great bands that we're mentioning, and of course you guys have such a twist to that as well. There's a specific way in which the rhythm section locks in, and I think that gives the whole character. You know.
Now you were talking. Well, we were talking yesterday, just in advance of this, and you. And I think the term pocket psychology was you brought up because well, why don't you tell everybody what you said to me yesterday?
Well, again, like, you know, when I started studying this stuff, very much removed from it, because I was a French speaking kid in Canada with baby boomer parents. You know, my parents were listening to Joni Mitchell. They weren't listening to Prince. They weren't listening to you guys. I didn't know any of this stuff really, so I all started doing my homework and about all of it, and when I started listening to different rhythm sections, there was always a specific way in which the bass and the drums lock in together.
Right.
The guitar comes after. It's really, it has to be the way the bass and the drums lock in. And I guess in music, we sort of call that the pocket. And sometimes it really depends. I think American musicians tend to be a little bit behind the beat. It's hard to explain, I think, for people who don't play music, but you know, even when there's a beat, you're never on it. In fact, if you're on it, it's going to sound horrible. So you're either a little bit in front of it or a little bit behind it.
You said you thought what made the characteristic that gave the Duran Duran rhythm section its thing was that the bass was like a little pushy and the drums were a little back. And I said, well, it's interesting you say that because, you know, I'm a very pushy guy. I'm like, come on, everybody. And Roger's just like, he's just like very laid back. And so, you know, so the way that we play maybe is an extension of
it has to be. It has to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, and a lot of people are asking about the new Duran Duran album, and you know, we've been working on that since well, for about a year actually in London, and we've been working with Errol Alcan, who I know that you know, and we've been working with Giorgio Moroder, which was amazing having him come into the studio with us for a few days. Mark Ronson's done a couple of songs, but we were really trying to get the album out this year and trying to get it out in the fall or the autumn. We had some shows lined up, and you know, I think given, you know, everything that's going down, we've chosen not to put the record out this year. It actually enables us to just, you know, just think a little bit more carefully. You know, I mean, I'm going off piste a little bit, but you know, Gil and I were talking yesterday actually about when things come back, particularly live music, which probably isn't going to be this year, you know, and I just wonder whether when the audience and the consumers of music, everybody, all of the music lovers that are out there, when it comes back, will our tastes have changed? You know, is all of this quarantining and all of this sort of the way that we're all having to live right now, and the way that we're having to communicate, I wonder whether it's going to change our appetite in any way and the kind of music that we're going to seek out. I mean, to some degree, I think it's determined by how much longer this goes on for and how much longer we are, you know, whether it's going to change. I don't know.
Yeah.
But actually, I went way off piste there. And what I was really going to say was, during the making of the record, there is one thing that I do, you know, we have an electronic drum kit set up in the control room, and Roger tends to, you know, play on that. And unlike the first couple of records, like Planet Earth, where we would write the songs in a rehearsal room and then go out and play them live, and then go into the studio, you know, now I think you do the same thing. We kind of write the songs in the studio. So Roger and I mean, we would spend hours working out fills, you know, like little fills from verses into choruses or halfway through. I mean, those little things where where the basses and the bass and the drums match up beautifully. Hi, Ola. She just WhatsApped me. Hi, Ola. Love you. You know, we don't do that so much anymore. I mean, a lot of changes. Now, I remember the first time I saw you guys, actually, it was at Coachella, and we just played, and then I bombed over to the other stage.
We played at the same time,
Yeah, you played, I think you were on before PJ Harvey on that stage.
Yeah, on the outdoor.
And actually, I was stunned that you guys didn't have a live drummer.
Didn't have one then, no. We wanted to keep it electronic because we came out, when our music became popular, even though we sort of rode a wave in North America and in Europe as well, that had been started with Daft Punk. And even though our influences came from funk music, our music was also, you know, it was made contemporary, let's say, through the lens of electronic music. And so we wanted our live show to be electronic because very often we would play after DJs in like a dance tent at least, you know what I'm saying? So we had to be able to compete. And we just kept it, you know, duo show and with some backing tracks and playing as many live instruments on top of it as we could. So we would, you know, trade between guitar, bass, keyboards. My partner's on the talk box, I'm on vocals. But we also, the thing is too, John, and I think you'll know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of more contemporary funk bands that they play too many fills. Like I always felt like, now I kind of like it in a weird way,
Right.
because I'm hanging out with a lot of church dudes. But 10 years ago, if you had shown me, you know, New Power Generation circa 1993, I would have been, no, like it's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be raw. I think that's the reason why you like Prince so much too, is that Prince is raw, Chic is raw, you know, Dirty Mind, there's like 5 instruments on there. It's essentially, it's a funk record, but with the architecture of a rock record or of a power trio, right?
Yeah.
And so we wanted that minimalism, and the best way to achieve it was with drum machines. So that's how we did it. And it's not until last summer for the first time, we actually built a band. And so we're moving
somebody
forward.
We were just asked, I missed your name, I'm sorry, but somebody just said, how does it feel, Dave, to have me as your future father-in-law?
It's great. It's great. We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
conversations are endless.
Yeah. I mean, it's been really wonderful getting to know you, and
likewise, it's amazing.
Yeah, and I think Atlanta appreciates that.
I think so too. I think so too.
I don't think we wouldn't. By the way, I don't think we would have made this whole thing happen today if it hadn't been for her. She's been fantastic helping us get together. My darling wife Gila, she's been amazing. I could not have done it without her. In New York, we've got Wendy Leister, we've got Sharon Cho, and Caddy Krasner, who runs all of the Duran socials. I mean, everybody's been full on hectic the last 24 hours trying to get this to happen. It's you know, it's like, you know, I see people doing it, you know, and it kind of looks like fun, and I think, you know, could I do that? You know, and Gila's like, yeah, you could do it. But you know, we've been, I mean, I won't even go into the details of how. No, she's like, don't even go there. Let's talk of Dave. It's been a kind of a cool week for you because you launched your own label, Juliet, which is something you've been cooking up for a while, and your first release came out on Monday. Do you want to let's tell everybody about that?
So we've been doing Chromeo for 15 years now, and we're at the point where we felt, being that we have our own studio in LA, and we've been, operating as a band long enough, we wanted to start producing other artists and sort of lending our sound to other artists. By the way, Niall and Bernard were doing that. That was a huge influence for me. Like that period of time where they were producing the Diana Ross records and all those records. I think that they were even involved in like Mick Jagger, She's the Boss, or like these weird right?
Niall was, Actually, yes, you're right. And Bernard and Tony both played on it.
And we wanted like a Chromeo version of that. So we figured we'd start a label, reach out to artists that we like, have them come to our studio, incubate a sound together, write music together, and then we can release it. So we premiered the first single from the first project on this label this week, and it's an artist in New York, a New York artist by the name of Ian Isaiah, who's a really amazing sort of futuristic, pan-gender, church-trained, gospel funk singer. And
super cool track. It's a super cool track, man.
It's really simple. It took us 15 minutes to cook it up. It's just like some like Curtis Mayfield Superfly shit.
Yes.
It's a pimp strut record, we call it, But we've got other things on the album. We went like with some like weird Stevie, kind of like very lush Stevie moments. And he wanted to do a gospel song, and we have some like straight up Rick James vibes on there. But he makes it really modern. And so that's one record. And there's a bunch of other stuff we're cooking up. So it's fun. I mean, again, I know we're talking about Chic a lot, but the way that those two dudes lent their sound to a whole sort of constellation of artists, whether it's Sister Sledge or even Madonna, that's really inspiring for us.
Well, I know that you're a restless spirit, Dave, like myself, and I know that you feel very privileged to do what you do. I think we got, never mind Willy Wonka, we got the golden ticket to get to do what we do. I mean, a lot of people are asking, I guess because this is tied into this little tutorial that I did, a lot of people are asking about advice for young musicians. I mean, to bet back to Bernard, I mean, I remember what Bernard used to say to me was, just don't ever stop playing. I mean, you can't get any more basic than that. But I mean, I always think that, and I don't know if you agree or disagree, but to me, I've never been big on genius. To me,
Oh
it's
no, I
just
don't
about
believe in it.
it's
I
just
don't believe
about
in it.
practice. You show up at your
See, I don't.
instrument.
That's your approach. I
Yeah.
I know you're like that. But
Yeah.
me, I'll be honest with you, John. I hated practicing when I was a kid.
Well, I don't like practicing either.
Yeah.
But you know, and I'd much rather play together with people, and
Yeah.
bass particularly.
Well, yeah.
I
You can't
always
do
feel is a tricky. It's a tricky instrument to play alone, and I think I've always said to the guys and girls that want to pick up a bass, I said, whatever you do, get a drum machine or a friend that'll beat
right.
out
A drum machine
beat
or
a
a friend.
drum, because just playing that thing alone in your room, it's the way to madness.
My advice is a little bit different than yours, but I think they're complementary.
Okay.
But for me, I was always a firm believer that you have to find your lane as a musician. And for me, it's always been 50% talent, sure, but the other 50% is just like originality. Bowie was not the best singer and he was not the best player, but he found the character. And there's only one Bowie, there's never going to be another Bowie. And same goes, I mean, I'm going to give a extreme example, but Kiss. There's never going to be another Kiss.
Right.
Daft Punk. There's never be Bjork. There's never going to be another one. They're larger than life characters. I always tell people, like, when you develop your persona as a musician, try to be one of one and occupy a lane that no one else but you has found. And I think the proof, look at Fiona Apple. She goes silent for 20 something years. She comes out and reminds the world that there hasn't been another Fiona Apple ever since. Right. Same could be said for Sade. Sade comes with a new album whenever she wakes up or whatever. And the whole world was like, oh my God, we've been waiting for that one thing. And so I always tell people, like, find your thing.
I agree. Actually, you've upset a lot of people. They're going, WTF, Bowie was an amazing singer, Dave. What are you talking about?
No, he was. I'm sorry to all the Duranis. He was, but what I'm saying is not virtuosic. You don't have to be
I think
a
what
virtuoso.
I mean, I like a persona. I've always liked a strong persona.
Yes.
A strong sense of identity. In the music, especially when I was a kid, I was really drawn to artists that came with a concept, it's why I have no interest in Voice or these talent shows where you have these remarkably talented individuals that are just singing in an extraordinary way. But to me, there's no art to it. There's no concept.
There's no twist. You have to have a twist.
There's no psychology.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why, I'm not cynical when it comes to presentation. And I think, you guys, when you came out, the look is a part of it. And there's no reason to be cynical about that. It's true. It's a part of, you're giving kids something to imagine and you're giving them a universe to latch onto, and I think that's really important. I again, for me as a Canadian kid with, immigrant Jewish parents, like when I would see bands on TV, whether it was you guys or Prince, like it was like superheroes. They were literally like superheroes, characters. And I idolized that. And the same came afterwards with rap. And when I was like, oh my God, Wu-Tang Clan, like what? They're black, but they want to be ninjas and they're wearing crazy stuff. Like it was larger than life. And I think that that's a huge part of a process as an artist, as a musician, is yes, you practice, yes, you hone your sound, but also you find your thing. And I think all the artists that we love have a thing,
Yeah. I'm kind of like tempted to, look at Supernova collab with Depeche Mode. Well, I'm not sure about that, but I'm tempted to look at some of the people all around the world. It's kind of exciting, actually, that you're all
crazy.
Everyone wants to do. I do what I do. I mean, what the hell is all that about? I mean, We Could Be Heroes, All Night Party. Play Canic. Boswell 3592 says play Canic Chase. Oh my God.
You're gonna get into
that's
it.
Very insider Midlands. That's UK Midlands insider talk. How often do you get back to Montreal?
A couple of times a year.
Yeah,
I visit my folks there. It was a really interesting place to grow up and to discover music, because the way my partner and I discovered music, again, this is not our parents, our parents are my parents are baby boomers. We didn't have George Clinton records at home.
Right.
But in used record stores, people were only buying King Crimson records. So all the disco and the funk records, they were 25 cents in the used bins covered in dust. We used to just go and buy the records with the guys with the biggest afros. I didn't know what Earth. Yeah, we didn't know. That was our criteria.
That's great, man.
We were like, oh my God, Brothers Johnson. Look at their afros. They're side by side. Look at Earth, Wind and Fire. We didn't know what Earth, Wind and Fire was. We was like, who calls their band Earth, Wind and Fire? And we'd go home and just study it and learn it, you know, and it was amazing.
I mean, I really got it. I mean, for me, I really got into that on the dance floor. You know, I mean, when I was
I'm 14 years old. I'm not going to the club.
Yeah, I mean, 79, 80, I mean, was around about the time we got involved with the Rum Runner nightclub in Birmingham. And it was a big transition because we'd been going to punk gigs and whatnot. And then, but then this world just opened up for us. And we started going to this club and there was a lot of cross dressing going on. And it was a really interesting mixture. There were like a few rockers, but a lot of soul boys. Yeah. Everybody dressed for this club.
That's amazing.
Everybody. And 7 days a week. And each day would have a different feel. You know, so Nick would DJ there, so there'd be like a kind of a progressive pop electro vibe when he would play. There was a soul night on Sundays where kids would come from all over the Midlands, you know, as if they were going to, well, it was a soul night, you know. And you know, we soaked all of that up, and you know, I don't know if you know this about us, but we got to set the gear up in an adjacent bar just off the dance floor. And so when the night was over, you know, it was like, you know, 1 a.m. when the DJ equipment would turn off, everybody would kind of walk up into our rehearsal room and we'd play a few songs.
Wow.
You know, so that it was absolutely extraordinary.
Incredible.
You know, an incredible opportunity. And so to get to play in that way, I don't know why I went off on that tangent.
That's a good tangent.
But you know, all I know is, I mean, like, I don't know that, you know, I would have gotten into Earth, Wind and Fire had I not been on a dance floor.
Yeah.
You know, and hearing records like bands, artists like that in that kind, that's where you really get it. You know, you have to have people around you, and everybody's getting into step. And it's like, this is the shit, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's funny. I never experienced it like that until much later. We were just kids. We had never heard people play like that. In fact, when I first listened to that music, I almost felt ashamed that it made me want to dance. Because
really?
Yeah, because we were rock kids. You don't dance. Dancing was like never. Are you kidding me? And I almost felt ashamed. I was like,
now look at you.
Yeah. No.
And now you're a dancing fool.
You know what you were saying about the bass is so funny because my partner, so I played guitar and my partner played bass. My partner is from a family of Lebanese immigrants who didn't speak a word of English, and they did not know what a bass was. They didn't really even know what a guitar was. They used to call it mandolins. They you know, because in Arabic music, it's the mandolin you play. So when he asked his mom for a bass, first of all, he had to tell her it's a guitar because his mom didn't know what a bass was. And then he had the bass at home, and his parents would be like, well, Patrick, play us a song. Play us a song. And Patrick was on the bass, and he's like, well, I can't. Well, what do you mean? You have your mandolin. Well, yeah, but I have to play with people. But just play us a song. It's got strings. Man. Just play something. And he'd play, you know, a bass line, and people would be like, where's this? Why did I spend $400 on this, you know?
I get that too. I think that's the reason why after all this time, I started taking piano lessons about a year ago. Because I get sick of people saying at a party saying, hey, why don't you play something? Trust me, if I start playing the bass line to Rio, nobody's going to, in this situation, it's going to be meaningless. Okay, so actually we're getting time checks. We've got to wrap this up. This is like, because we're calling this the Stone Love Bass Odyssey, I'm going to ask you, and top of your head, what's your favorite bass line?
Oh, wow. My favorite bass line, Good Times is the best bass line of all time.
Yeah, I feel
it's
you
the
there.
Best. I have to. In rock, maybe in rock. John Paul Jones had some funky
No
ones.
doubt, no doubt.
He was a little soulful in his own way, I think.
Without a doubt. And
But
John Entwistle, I mean, it's some fantastic bass players. But let's take Good Times. I think that's a.
it's
I
the
think
best
that's a
of all
good,
time.
I think
It's
that's
the
a
best of all
good.
time.
Yeah, I
Because
think
you know
that's-
why? Because it moves on the neck too. You know what I'm saying? It moves, so it's got such a range. It's the craziest thing on earth. You know.
It's been a real pleasure, Dave. I really appreciate it.
Likewise,
And I
John.
appreciate everybody that's been with us on this this live feed. And you know, I kind of want to apologize for not checking in with everybody that's been sending in their questions and well wishes. Just getting this thing going. But Dave and I, we're music freaks. We can talk about music forever, and I hope that that's been amusing for everybody to listen to. I have to. Oh yes, in terms of reconnecting with the real world. What are you most? What's when things? I mean, I hate using this kind of language. When things go back to, what are you missing most about the way you're having to live at this moment?
I want to go to the Met. I told Atlanta. I told Atlanta, we're not going back to New York until the Met reopens. You know, we're used to going to New York is a giant playground for us. We're always doing museums and walking. I want to go to the museum, and I don't want to go if they're limiting capacity. I want to go. I want it to be crowded.
Right.
I want to be yelling at tourists in my head. You know, I miss that. But yeah, definitely like New York City style museums is what I miss the most.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Well, listen, thanks, Dave. Thanks so much. I'll see
Thanks
you.
for having
I'll see
me.
you at the church. And you know, and if you don't follow Dave and Chromeo, please do. There's some. I mean, and we didn't even mention these songs that you've been posting.
The quarantine songs.
Your quarantine songs are the best remedy for the coronavirus right now that I'm aware of. And thanks everybody for watching. See you next week. Cheers.
Later. Thank you.
This is fans. Thank you, fans. And look forward to connecting again in the real world. Yes, there's going to be another guest next week. Thank you all very much. I mean, I could have just left it.